Good evening. Welcome to the October 21st Village Board Legislative Session. This meeting is called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Martha, do you want to start with attendance and then we'll do our announcements?
Okay, Trustee Fritchie,
Present.
Trustee Lopez,
Present?
Trustee Levin, and Trustee Quesada,
Present.
Mayor Garrity.
Present.
And I think it's the public hearing goes first unless you want to switch it over with the announcement.
No, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that. So this is a public hearing that's a continuation of the local law number 7 related to wetlands protections. Stuart, do you want to give us a little update on where we are with this?
Happy to, Mayor. Thank you. The board has been provided with the most recent revision to proposed local law 7 of 2020. And it is also up on the village's website. It made a few changes based upon some conversations that staff had internally, including some conversations with Building Inspector Joe Agostinelli. But otherwise, the code provisions are effectively the same as they were when we had our when the public hearing was first opened 2 weeks ago. If the legislation is acceptable to the board upon the close of the public hearing, we would get a final version to board members no later than Friday, and then there could be a vote on the local law on at the November 4th legislative session. We do have some, there are some housekeeping matters that will have to be taken care of, one of which involves the approval of the map, which can come at the time of the approval by the board. Also, the board has to approve the hiring of a wetlands consultant in accord with the local law. And there are fee schedules that have to be approved, presumably in connection with the village's fee schedule for the 2021 calendar year. But the local law itself is before the board now, and we did receive one letter which I had sent to the board, and that was again from Counsel for Birchbrook Manor. Other than that, we've not received any other comments with regard to proposed local law 7 of 2020, other than what has been discussed before.
Okay, so we did have some email exchanges related to the timing of things. Because if we close the public hearing right now and we were to vote on it in 2 weeks, if we did not yet have the fee schedule in place and the other housekeeping items that you mentioned, Stuart, then what would happen to applicants who are already in the process? And I don't know if that's a Stuart question or a Jaime question.
Well, applicants, Mayor, who are already in the process, unless they have final approval, they would be covered. They would be covered by this local law. In terms of fees for people coming before the board would either have to adopt fees that would go into the current 2020 fee schedule. The board could determine that the local law should not go into effect until January 1 of 2021, which may dovetail with the retention of the wetlands consultant and the fees. Because while now the local law would go into effect upon filing in accord with the municipal home rule law, the board could determine that the start of the local law should be January 1st, if they wanted to, or the board wanted to, or another subsequent date, so that everything would essentially be in line at that point. That would be a determination the board would have to make.
That seems to make a lot of sense to me, but this is the first time we've had an opportunity to consider this as a group. So I'd like to hear what my colleagues think about that. because we're in a position where we have to decide if we're closing the local law now or not. And I guess, logistically, Stuart, if we were to make that modification of the effective date as January 1, 2021, is that something that would have to be modified tonight in the local law draft, and then when we vote on it in 2 weeks, it's included in that?
If you indicate tonight, if it's the sense of the board tonight, Mayor, to change the effective date, which is essentially the very last paragraph of the local law, that can be done. I can make that change, and then everyone would have it, by Friday, which gives us the 10 calendar days, excluding Sunday, before November 4th. The board could vote on it, and then the local law could be approved, but would then again not go into effect until whatever date is chosen by the board. Let's say it's January 1st of 2021. That would become the effective date.
So I don't know what my colleagues are going to say, but I do want to understand the alternative if we just let it go forward, effective as soon as it's filed with New York State, but we don't have the other things in place, like the fee schedule and the wetland specialist in place, then
you're missing two important parts of the local law.
So the law would be in effect, but applicants couldn't actually comply with it.
The law would be in effect. Well, not only the applicants, theoretically, the village couldn't comply with it because we wouldn't have a wetlands consultant.
Right.
And so you'd be missing, the applicants would be missing from the sense that they would file an application, but we wouldn't have a fee schedule to file it with, and we wouldn't have a wetlands consultant to formally do the work that is covered by this code section. That is correct.
Okay.
So,
I mean, you had taken off your, oh, go ahead, Bob.
just real quick. So we make this effective January 1, 2021. We're coming into budget season anyways, and we would probably be discussing the fees. So they would be adopted at that time at budget, and then this could be rolled right into the 1st of January, correct?
That is correct, Trustee Fritchie.
Okay.
And also, what I would say, I apologize, is that at the reorganization meeting, one of the things that could be done is that the board could at that point pass a resolution retaining whatever entity to serve as wetlands consultant.
Right. Me personally, I'm in favor of lining it up with the January 1st, 2021.
Yeah, the one thing that I had kind of taken off of mute for was just to mention that the one piece that Stuart didn't mention is that we do also need to finalize the environmental review process. So that's just the other final outstanding piece. That's kind of a housekeeping measure. Oh yeah, also you had asked in an email, Mayor, if we could get a draft scheduled by the 28th, and so we are working on trying to get something at least be looked at.
That's great. I mean, I was, if we have a date certain of when this will be effective, then I just think that needs to be the goal, but sooner rather than later, so that if things can be figured out. If it's ready for the 28th, then that's great. Because actually we only have one work session in November, something to keep in mind, and only one work session in December. So we basically have 3 work sessions till the end of the year. Good. I don't know if I hear you in my, oh.
We can't hear you.
No, we're
yet.
not hearing you yet. To try that.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Now we hear you.
Now you can hear me? Oh, okay, great. So I'm just trying to get my arms around the mayor's and Trustee Fritchie's questions, because I'm trying to understand process and what comes first, second, third, fourth. So let us say that it's January 1st is the effective date. The process of getting a consultant of any kind, what does that look like? How long does that take, and what is that process? It seems that we could still vote on this even when a consultant is not in place, because we could put the consultant in place before January 1st. So that's one process. The environmental thing, we sort of brush through that, but I don't know how long that generally takes. So to the mayor's point, we have to pass something that people can then actually do and use. We can't just pass it and then nobody could actually participate in it. The fees I get, and that's our doing, that's pretty easy. And I need to know if there is a magic a date of January 1st. Does it have to be January 1st for some reason? Could it be another date in January? Could it be February 1st? Is there something specific to January 1st that we need to keep in mind? Those are my three questions. I don't even know who I'm asking. I guess I'm asking Stuart and Jaime.
January 1 is not a talismanic date, Trustee Levin. It is a date because that would be basically the start of the village's year, when the fee schedule would go into effect and when everything else. So if the board wanted to do it a different date, they could do it a different date. As for the environmental, it's fairly straightforward because there's no negative environmental impact here. So it's only, in a sense, so it would not require, an environmental impact statement or anything like that. So it can be sort of folded into the resolution. In terms of the wetlands consultant, you're correct. I mean, that can be, you can do that at any point. I know that Kellard Sessions has been of invaluable assistance in, helping us put this together. And one of the folks there, Jan Johansson, is in fact the certified wetlands consultant. And it may well be that, and that's something that's going to be discussed, is to utilizing Kellard for that purpose, at least for 1 year. It may then ultimately be something that would be subject to an RFP process, as part of the regular check with regard to village engineers, consultants, and things like that. But I think the most important thing would be to have the fees in place, because if the fees are not in place, then an applicant doesn't know what they have to do. And if an applicant doesn't know, then neither does the planning or building. So, but January 1st is not a date set in stone. If this board wanted to make it February, January 15th, February, March, whatever, this board can do that.
Okay, and the RFP for whether it's color session or possibly, I guess the town has had a wetlands, they must use some consultant. Other towns have had this since the 90s, they must use, that's professional services, correct?
It is, but what we were all thinking from a staff perspective is that because we want to do this and have something in place at the very early part of 2021, running an RFP in the middle of October for something to basically happen in about 2 months, it's probably not feasible. It's more appropriate to probably just get someone in place and then do the RFP, probably, put it out sometime in the middle of 2021 to start for 2022. Great. So at least, we have something at this point. You're right, it is professional services. We like to put them in a certain cycle. And so since we're looking at probably doing our engineering consultant sometime, for an RFP in 2021, this would dovetail into that.
Great. And lastly, and Manny might want to ask this himself, it's simply that I recall that a couple of weeks ago, Manny had asked about, do we have a written process, A through Z? So when someone comes in, that the staff knows what the sequence of events are with this added event, or any of that has been done. I think I'm speaking to Jaime here. Jaime, excuse me.
Yes. So we do have a proposed process. I sent out an email to, I believe it was to you and to Manny, that talked about what that general process is, sort of the step-by-step that we have internally. We would probably want to punch that up a little bit to make sure that there's no gaps. There's also been some changes to the text that make it a little bit more clear inside the text, so that there's no confusion on that. And that's part of the changes that were just updated, that Stuart sent out to you earlier this week. But we do have a pretty clear process. It'll be 100% clear once the legislation is passed, because we're going to make sure that it goes into the actual parcels in the database that is used when people come in to get get an application.
Great. So that's super. So it seems like a January 1, as Bob had mentioned too, and I think Victoria had mentioned, like the date issue, seems reasonable, because by then we will also be able to post this sort of information on the website. So let our land use boards know about it, since it's something new. So it feels like, even though December's a holiday month for many people, I'm going to go with a January 1st. I don't know what my other colleagues are thinking. Bob already said he's in support of it. So thank you so much to all of you for this was personally, you know, for the environmental causes that I believe so strongly, and I just feel this is putting us in line with the rest of the region finally. So thank you for bringing this to its final leg. I appreciate it.
So I'm hearing a growing consensus for January 1st as an effective date, which means we could actually close the public hearing today with that one modification, Stuart, although I'm happy to hear Omar gives a thumbs up to that approach. Manny, did you want to comment?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Yes, actually, I'm in agreement with everybody in regards to that, and to the process. We did have a meeting, an internal meeting from, I don't know if you guys recall, from 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Jaime, Stuart, Joe Gastinellis, Karen was there. I think Maddie was there. No, Maddie was not there. So we went through the process, and I don't remember, Jaime, seeing that email that you mentioned a few minutes ago, but I do know that we actually going to be meeting on the 26th through a Zoom call. That I have it in my calendar to go through exactly the process and what the steps by steps that looks like. One of the concerns, obviously, to me is that, and what does it look like for a residential process for someone in the deck. So I kind of this afternoon I went back and read the clean resolution that was sent out to us. So I do have a couple quick questions in regards to that, Stuart. And this nothing crazy, something that I have mentioned in the past. The definitions that we have in here, I just want to make sure we are consistent to the main definitions that we have under our zoning, the 270. I'm not sure if, you know, because I don't want to have misrepresentation of one definition to another. I have mentioned that in the past, so I haven't checked. So I'm sure that is there, but I just want to kind of bring that up. And the other one was kind of interesting to me, under the 149-3. I'm sorry, no, is it 149-4? And I mentioned to one of my colleagues earlier today, I thought it was kind of interesting. It talks about number 13. It says grazing of horses and other animals, except to provide in chapter 75. Can you just, I mean, I know it was the village of Ossining, but could you kind of just clarify for me, why do we have grazing of horses on this part? Just out of curiosity, I guess.
If someone were to do it, that's why it was there. It's, you know, I'm telling you that if you look at almost every other municipality, they actually have that in there. But
that's what, yeah.
That's the best I can tell you.
Okay. That's what we talked about as well. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring it up. You know, I know. Okay, and that was it. I mean, there's everything else. It seems pretty straightforward. I'm glad that to see the minor changes that you had that were highlighted and red. So I went through all that stuff. So thank you for everyone that actually worked on this resolution. It you know, it's. I guess the other question that I had, and that's the last one, and I'm not going to ask any more after this. Why 21 days?
You mean for the administrative permit turnaround time?
Correct.
Because we wanted to make sure that the public didn't have to sit around waiting too long. You know, it would be our best effort to try to get it as quickly as possible, but we wanted to make sure that there was no slowdown that took place in the building department. So kind of keep the fire burning on staff to make sure that it got done in a timely manner, because the applicant doesn't really come in with the expectation that they're going to have to wait forever. So we wanted to make sure that it was timely.
So I understand that. So a typical, I guess we can talk about that on internally on Monday, but okay, thank you.
Just real quick, also wanted to mention, I sent that email on Tuesday, October 13th to you. The document was called Flowchart for Wetlands Approval Process. And I'm just going to send it around again to the whole board right now, as well as Karen and Stuart, and Maddie, and certainly we can talk about it. And I guess we'll follow up on that day.
Thank you.
So we do still have the public hearing open, and we have three attendees, one of which I think is the person sitting in the camera in the room. But if there's anybody who would like to comment during the public hearing for proposed local law number 7 related to wetlands, I'll give a moment for somebody to raise their hand in the attendee room. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone. I think we have consensus of a January 1st effective day, Stuart.
That's fine.
So if we close the public hearing now and then include it in the agenda in 2 weeks, the only difference between the draft that we saw today and the draft that we would vote on in 2 weeks would be the effective date. Is that correct?
Right. The very last line, the very last paragraph of the local law will now say this chapter shall become effective on January 1, 2021.
Terrific. That's a big day for you, Rika. Oh, you're excited about this law? You're going to take the oath of office? Yeah. Okay. All righty. So we need to have a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion. We close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Rika, you're muted. But aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Did you get that, Martha? Sorry, we just expedited our little process there. All righty. So I think we're ready for mayors and trustees announcements. I'm sure somebody has some announcements. There's a lot of exciting and important things happening. Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Omar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll start with the comprehensive plan. So we had a couple of things related to the comprehensive plan. Yesterday, we had a public hearing where during our regularly scheduled comprehensive plan steering committee time, we opened it up to the public to be able to come and ask questions and make comments with respect to the chapters of the comprehensive plan that are already up. And we got a variety of comments. I'd say that a good number of the folks were familiar to me, which in some ways is sad because I'd love new voices. But there were a lot of really helpful new ideas brought up during that public comment period. That was a result of a suggestion from Corporation Counsel, Stuart, Kahan, to ensure that we have public voice as we're putting the plan together as it is intended. We're going to have it probably in February, according to our timeline, the larger public comment period after the plan is really baked. So at this point, it's still in the oven, it's still baking, but we wanted to get some input there. We also had a subcommittee meeting. So for folks that have not been following along, one of the ways that we've been getting information with respect to the plan is by getting groups of folks together with respect to different chapters of the comprehensive plan or connected to a certain issue. And this week we met with the Board of Education in order to understand their perspective with respect to the comprehensive plan. And the result of that was also a very strong conversation. We were able to learn about their perspective with respect to development, with use of spaces in the village, whether it's open spaces or having internet-enabled spaces, programming for students. So there were a lot of ideas as well that we wanted to make sure to emphasize in the comprehensive plan. The work continues, so you can follow the comprehensive plan project on ossiningtomorrow.org. And you can also link through the village website if you just want to go to the village's website there. Number 2 is the DPW site. So this Saturday at 1 p.m., we're going to be having a site presentation. So for folks that have been following this project electronically, this is an opportunity to see it in person and get an overview about what the vision is with some of the folks that have been involved from the beginning. So we're going to have members of the Board of Trustees. We're going to have members from Wilder-Balter Partners, who are the developers, the preferred developers working on this project. We'll have staff, and there'll be an opportunity for Q&A in addition to just providing information. You'll really be able to see it with your eyes, what the vision is. Not only where is this building going to go, but where's the parking garage going to go? How does it connect to the Sing Sing Kill greenway? How does the brownfield cleanup change the whole environment of that area? Then how does the completion of this project impact the economic situation in that area, but also the environmental effects, everything else? You're going to be hearing a lot of great information this Saturday at 1 p.m. Is going to be as COVID-friendly an event as we can have. It will be outside. It will be socially distanced. We will be as mindful as possible about trying to have that balance of taking advantage of the weather holding and not being super cold yet, but also the numbers not increasing to the point where it would be unfeasible for us to have an opportunity for folks to be able to see this space themselves. So we're really excited about this dialogue that we're going to have on Saturday. Number 3, we had police reform and reinvention working committee meeting today. It was really great because we got 3 new additions from the NAACP, from the DA's office, and from legal aid. And so we're really excited about those additions to the working committee. And right now what we're doing is finalizing the contract with Matrix, who is the facilitator for this project, and we're going to be moving forward lightning speed, trying to get as much work done in the time allotted, because we do have a hard deadline of having this completed and with public comment and everything by April 1st of next year. And so really excited about that. The last 2 pieces that I'll say are more community health and knowledge pieces. So one is with respect to early voting. I know that other folks have early voting on the mind, whether they're on the ballot themselves or because it is their civic duty. And so I'll do a little bit of a different twist on it. I'll provide some early voting information in Spanish, okay? Para la gente que están viendo esto, si no lo saben, lo tienen que saber que votando este año es más importante que cualquier otro año, no solamente porque estamos votando para presidente, pero también por alcalde o alcaldesa en esta situación, por Congreso, el Senado estatal, muchísimos, tenemos muchos candidatos que están postulando para el gobierno y tenemos que tener su voz por votando, ¿ok? Tienen 3 maneras de votar. Pueden votar en persona, claro, el martes 3 de noviembre, pero también este sábado abre la oportunidad para que pueda votar temprano. Entonces pueden venir aquí a donde estamos, en el centro de la comunidad, el Computer Center, en el pueblo de Ossining, que es uno de solamente pocos lugares en el condado entero donde pueden votar temprano. Entonces, comenzando este sábado, el 24 de octubre, de las 12 de la tarde hasta las 5 de la tarde, yendo hasta el domingo, el 1 de noviembre, también de 12 a 5. Y si usted va para la página de web del pueblo, puede conseguir más información del horario. Va a ser todos los días, de sábado el 24 hasta el domingo el 1. También, tercero, puede mandar su boleto por correo, pero tienen que saber, es un poco complicado aquí en Nueva York. Yo no sé por qué lo hacen así, pero es un poco complicado. Entonces, primeramente, tienen que descargar la solicitud de voto en ausencia. Eso significa que tienen que conseguirlo en la oficina de clerk que tenemos, pero también la biblioteca. Hay varios sitios que lo puede encontrar o lo puede descargar, imprimir en su casa, porque tiene que solicitar el voto de ausencia. Tenemos hasta el martes, el 27 de octubre, el próximo martes, el martes que viene, es la fecha que tiene que recibir esas aplicaciones para solicitar el voto en ausencia. Entonces, tienen hasta el 10 de noviembre para poder, claro, el 3 de noviembre es cuando lo van a contar, pero lo pueden mandar el 3 de noviembre. Entonces le dan hasta el 10 de noviembre para que ellos lo reciban para poder contarlo. Por correo, el día de la elección o temprano en persona, por favor, vote. The last piece that I want to talk about is with respect to health and wellness. So in talking to some of my friends in the health world, one of the things that they have seen is a reduction in the number of people going in for screenings, regular screenings, especially for some of the biggest leading causes of death in our country. So we know that we have lost already 222,000 people in this country to coronavirus. It is an incredibly important topic, and we will be talking a little bit more about the way that we are going to be either continuing to meet in person or not with these hybrid meetings. But don't forget, coronavirus, although 222,000 is an enormous amount of people whose lives we have lost just this year alone. The last year, we lost almost 3 times that, 600,000 people to cancer and a little over 600, almost 650 to heart disease, cancer and heart disease. So going in for regular cancer screenings, the hospital, I know that it can be really scary to go in during a time of pandemic, but it can be, in fact, one of the safest places you can go because of all the precautions that they have going on there. And so going in for those regular screenings, incredibly important. Also, I had a close friend whose father had heart pains, he had chest pains, went into the hospital and actually had a heart attack at the hospital. And because he was there, he's able to get the help that he needs. And thank goodness he's doing really well right now. But that's because he went into the hospital. He followed his body. He listened to what was going on and he went to the hospital. He did not try to tough it out. So when it comes to heart disease and cancer, especially, I urge, I plead, I beg, go and get your regular screenings. That's it for me.
Thank you, Trustee Lopez. Who else has comments or announcements? Go ahead, Trustee Fritchie.
I almost forgot where I was, but I'm going to dovetail off of Omar's DPW announcement that this Saturday, yes, 1 o'clock, there was discussion earlier this week on a small meeting that we received an email from a constituent, not complaining, but just, you know, Saturday's our first day of early voting and was concerned about that. So we brought it up to the builder, and they're looking into a possible second site visit, you know, weather pending and all that good stuff. So I just wanted to bring that to light. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Levin.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm just going to echo my colleague's words. I normally don't actually discuss health issues at these meetings, but I do want to say that with an uptick in the country and in Westchester County, I am begging people, as you're making your Thanksgiving plans and your Christmas holiday plans, I know a lot of employers are concerned. The majority of states in the United States have been deemed, I'm going to call them unsafe. It's not the politically correct words, but it has been deemed by the governor. It is really complicated to go to these states. I know a lot of people hearing this are missing their parents, their children, their grandchildren. It's been months now, but I beg you not to take those flights and not to visit because bringing things back to this community affects all of us. And these masks aren't just to protect you from catching a virus that is airborne, but it's actually to protect others as well. So I'm begging you to think twice before leaving the community and going to, you know, I think the list is now over 40 states. So that's just an ask from one citizen, one resident to another. I'm also going to encourage, again, it's a health issue, but from what I've read, the flu shots season is here. A lot of it is free. You have a higher risk of getting both if you don't take the flu shots, and the symptoms look very similar. So every pharmacy has put signs up to please, please, please get your flu shots. Highly recommended for every member of your family. Could save your life, actually. Getting both the flu and the virus is, I don't even want to think about the end of that sentence. I really encourage people to come out to look at the DPW site. It's been requested by a number of my colleagues that when we have meetings in the future, they're not just done in a conference room or on Zoom, but the people actually meet where things are happening. So I'm hoping to start this as more of a precedent for future developments, for future meetings to actually take place at the site. And that's why it's important to go. I also want to make sure people understand this is not a vote up or down by the community on what the developer is presenting. It's actually input to see if you even like what's being said. It's an opportunity for you to comment for their record and their input. They seriously want to hear what you have to say. So big encouragement. I thought, Omar or Bob, I thought that there was also a rain date. If it's raining, am I wrong about that? I just want to make sure that we're
Yes,
giving accurate information.
the rain date would be Sunday.
Sunday, right? Okay.
Yes.
Just putting it out there for you, and I'll post it on social media as well tomorrow, just as a reminder to some of the groups I'm part of in Ossining. So thanks. That's it.
Thank you. So I'm going to piggyback in something that Omar mentioned in regards to early voting. That information, it is in our website. You will have to go to the village clerk or town clerk's website, and all that information is in there, including other locations, not in Ossining, but throughout Westchester County as well. And it gives you a very detailed times and dates is actually in there. The times fluctuate during the week. Sometimes it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, not necessarily at noon. So just for you guys to actually be aware that you can go, you can come here definitely, but just check out the times on our website. The other portion that I think I'm not sure if Omar mentioned in regards to the open meeting, the public meeting that we had on comprehensive plan was even though we had that first meeting, please, I urge you to watch the meeting, go back and take a look at the documents. And if you have any comments, please let us know. There's some information in there that you have questions, or do you have concerns, or you want to give us some feedback. I think it's important for us to actually hear from everybody in the community. I know there's, sometimes you miss the meeting, but just because you miss the meeting, that doesn't mean that, we don't want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear the input. So all that information is in our website. Please, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to any of us here and through our email, or just call in Village Hall. We'll get back to you, or even Jaime or Stuart, Karen, anyone here, if you have specific questions in relationship to the comp plan itself. So thank you.
Okay, lots of good stuff happening here. It was a great opportunity for me to get to practice how my Spanish is doing. My children don't speak it as much around me as I just got to experience, and I did know a lot of the vocabulary, so I was able to follow along. Thank you very much, Trustee Lopez, for that little practice session. And I'll give a couple of the highlights in English for folks. I think that the voting information about early voting, and we only have 12 polling sites in all of Ossining this time. Normally, I believe we have 18 different sites for our 30 different voting, and it's a lot of different types of buildings that we're using this time than last time. So it's important that you know, if you're going to wait until November 3rd, Election Day, you may not be in your usual polling place. So please do make sure, if you've got a postcard in the mail, but some of us don't look through our mail that carefully, or things happen, but that information is available online on the town website, on the village website, or the Westchester Board of Elections to find out. There's lots of places where you can find it. Just make sure that you do it before you leave your house on Election Day and you're not sure where to go. And I'll just reiterate that we are in the very building where early voting is going to take place, beginning in just 3 days. Early voting starts on Saturday the 24th. It goes through Sunday, November 1st. And it is there are different times of the days throughout those 9 days. There's a little bit of a different schedule, and all of that, as we said, is available on the village and town website and the Westchester Board of Elections. And also, it's worth knowing, if you're somebody who chooses to vote by absentee ballot, or if you have someone in your life who prefers to do it by absentee ballot, if they're concerned about putting it in the mail and they'd like to have someplace to drop it off. And I'm looking at you, Martha, because if there's more that I don't know about, please chime in. I know that you can drop it off at any polling place when the polling place is open. Obviously, that's here during early voting, and then any of the 12 polling locations. And so let's say your grandmother filled out an absentee ballot. She's nervous about putting it in the mail, and you're going to go early vote. You can deliver it on her behalf to one of the polling places. Is there someplace else, Martha?
No, so the way that the absentee ballots are working is if you have an absentee ballot, don't deliver it to the clerk's office. You've actually had a couple of people already wanting to deliver it. You can't deliver it at the clerk's office. What you can do is you can either A, you can mail it to Westchester Board of Elections, B, you can physically drop it off at the Westchester Board of Elections, or 3, during the time of early voting, you can actually drop it off. If you live in Austin here, the Westchester at the community center here, or any of the other places in Westchester, they're gonna have early voting. Also, piggybacking on what was happening on November 3rd, if you choose to vote that day, certain places are not going to be open for voting. So if you were voting at a firehouse before, or if you're voting at OVAC, those places are not going to be open on election day. You should have gotten a postcard in the mail telling you where your new polling place is. If you have not received that, you can call the clerk's office and we'll be able to double check to see where you're going to be voting. The new places are the Ossining Public Library and then Roosevelt School, so we can direct you where you want to go.
Thank you, Martha. That's great. And I will say that I was told by somebody who worked for the Board of Elections that when you arrive here, I'm going to be coming and doing early voting here in this location in just a few days. And I'm looking forward to seeing someone who is serving as the social distancing ambassador in the location. And that is, I assume they're going to be reminding us to make sure that we're wearing our masks, we're keeping our distance, and offer us hand sanitizer, something along those lines. Things that we all should know by now, but it's important that that's reinforced anytime we're inviting people to be in a space together. Which brings me to my next topic. We are here in a room together. Some of us are participating virtually. Some of us are participating 8 or 10 feet away from each other. Some of us are wearing our masks during the meeting, some of us are not. And we have really been trying to be as flexible and as accommodating as possible for people to be able to participate in our village board meetings, especially as we start looking at things. The reason for this is especially as we start looking at things where people may really want to be able to weigh in. Our goal is to be as accessible as possible for people, whether they are tech savvy and want to participate virtually, or we want to, bridge that digital divide for folks who don't have that same level of access to technology. And that's why we've been having these hybrid meetings. But we are having conversations about, the reality of what we're seeing. And there are over 40 states right now that are on the quarantine list, meaning that their rates are too high. And we don't want them, if you come to New York from one of those states, you then need to quarantine for 14 days. And the, the list doesn't, but probably should include some of our neighboring states like New Jersey, but because there's just so much cross-pollination of folks who work on one state or the other, the governor didn't put them on the list just as a matter of functionality. But the reality is most of the country, the vast majority of the country, is now on the quarantine list, and we know that the numbers in Westchester are rising. So it's very possible that as we're seeing this disturbing trend, that there may be different guidelines coming from the governor, and we're going to be constantly evaluating on a local level if what we're doing here with the hybrid meetings makes sense. For those of you, most of you have not been in the room, we're in the gym, which is a very large room. We are spread out on tables that go across nearly 2 full walls in an L, and obviously some of the folks that are here that you see on the screens are in other locations. And then the whole rest of the room has cameraman Tom, who's filming us, and 2 folks who are from our IT department. And then if there are folks in the audience, which there are some weeks, although there's not today, their seats are spread out with a large screen in front of them. So we've taken a lot of precautions in this space, but even still, we're constantly evaluating what is the right thing for us to be doing here in Ossining. And I hope that you and your organizations are really being mindful of any executive orders and directives coming from the state, and we certainly do our very best to get that information out to folks and share things on the website and in our web blast as there is additional information available. Thank you very much, Jamie Hoffman, for being really on top of that, really for the last 7 months, putting that information out there to the public. And our web blast really turned into a COVID guidelines weekly email on Thursdays, and that information is still available there, and it's going to keep evolving as this never-ending saga, it seems, continues. I did want to just and I'll give another shout out to Jamie as part of the team that really helped with Ossining's census results. Omar Lopez, thank you very much for being our Board of Trustee liaison and getting information out and making people aware of the deadlines and how important it is. And Jamie Hoffman just did a really stellar job of communicating so much about the census, all of those updates that you saw in social media and with the web blast and coordinating the banners and working with the county to get the resources here. Jamie was really spearheading the coordination of that effort. So thank you very much for that, Jamie Hoffman. And thank you to the 2/3 of the households in Ossining Village who responded. We surpassed our 2010 numbers by, I believe it was 2%. And I have to say, it's tough to know if this hadn't been a pandemic year, how well we would have done. I think the big plus that the census had going for it this year was the ability for people to respond so easily and quickly online in a way that we never have before. And I think that access, that streamlined approach to people being able to respond did a lot for helping to make up for some of the challenges that we had, this being a pandemic year where we couldn't do much door to door. And also the fact that we've had a few years where there's been national policies that have been really anti-immigrant and have been discouraging for so many people in Ossining to feel that they can trust the government. And so I think it's actually pretty impressive that we surpassed our numbers from 10 years ago. And kudos to everybody who worked so hard to get the word out about how important it was to respond. And I'm optimistic that in 2030, we're going to be way up there. I'm really, really excited. Actually, the person I'm most excited to see tonight is Dale Brennan. And so we're going to hear from her in just a couple of minutes. It's really like the best news, you know, for the last 7 months, really. Thank you, Dale, for being here. We're really excited for some of what you have to tell us. And the last thing that I'm going to mention is I participated in a conference call today, and the village is undertaking an initiative, both related to energy smart solutions. The village has been selected to be part of the Energy Smart Homes program from Sustainable Westchester. And thank you very much. Andy Teese, I believe, participated in the first of the 3 meetings for selecting the contractors. And then we're going to be moving forward. I know Rika is going to, I don't know if you're going to be able to participate in the meetings next week, Rika, to learn more about the contractors, but Rika is our village liaison who's going to be helping to bring that program to, that's primarily for residential homes. Today I learned about the counterpart of that program for commercial properties. And there are just so many programs out there that Sustainable Westchester will help you walk you through the process, but really it's a partnership between Con Ed and NYSERDA because, and we are eligible for a lot of funding, both for residences and for commercial properties because we are in the natural gas moratorium area. So that means that they recognize that we still want energy efficiency. We still want to be able to have construction and whether that's upgrades on existing structures or new buildings, there are alternatives that are all electric that have to do with heat pumps and actually a whole variety of products. So there's a lot out there Sustainable Westchester has available for us, but I'm really excited that we're going to have a campaign here locally to really help homeowners learn a lot about that. Thanks to everybody for helping get our application in, and we're going to bring that program to Ossining. And with that, I've exhausted my list. So, Madam Manager.
You're muted. It might be muted on the bottom.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. I really don't have many comments tonight, and I do want to get to 2 items that we have under my announcements. We are going full steam ahead, as you heard, with comprehensive plan. We're also Broad Avenue is newly paved. We have our parking study and our parking apps in the works, and we're also just launched we're just sent out the Route 9 road diet RFP this week, so we'll be looking for great feedback and input there. So we're moving ahead on a lot of our projects as we're wrapping up the year. But tonight there are 2 things. So we're going to save our highlight for last, a budget recap and update. But first I want to introduce Carmen Santos from Sustainable Westchester, who also has been very, very busy, to give us an update on the contract with Sustainable Westchester. Thank you, Carmen.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Let me start with sharing my screen. Okay, so I'm going to give you some updates on our Westchester Power program. So I guess for the viewing audience, Westchester Power is a program of Sustainable Westchester. We work with municipalities to aggregate residents and small businesses to purchase clean electricity together at competitive fixed rates. So 27 municipalities participate in the program, including the village of Ossining, and 24 of them have chosen green supply or 100% renewable energy as their default supply, and the village of Ossining has done this as well. And the other option we have is called a standard product, which is a mix of renewable energy and fossil fuels. So I'm here to tell you some updates about our 2021 contract that is coming up. We recently had a bid auction where 4 suppliers competed against one another to win our business. And it was a very exciting auction. As you can see this image over here, this is the auction happening in when it was happening, it was in real time. And Constellation actually gave us one of the best offers for an 18-month period. And so we decided to go with them. And so for a residential standard supply, it will be at 6.749 cents per kilowatt hour. For residential green supply, it will be 7.405 cents per kilowatt hour. And for the commercial standard supply, it's going to be 6.445 cents per kilowatt hour. And the commercial green supply, it's going to be 7.1 cents per kilowatt hour. Both the residential and commercial prices that are going to be available for 2021 are lower than our current price, which is 7.96 cents. So we're very excited that we actually were able to achieve this competitive renewable energy. And when we compare these prices to their current prices that are available in the New York State Power to Choose for a 12-month period for a fixed rate, we are probably like second to lowest for your area. So we're very proud that we've been able to achieve a competitive rate for green renewable energy. And so things to look up to is on November 5th, you're going to be receiving a notification letter, or around that time. It's going to be coming from us, and that letter is going to have information about the rates I just shared. It's also going to let you know that there's an opt-out period from November 15 to December 15. If you choose to stay in the program, you don't have to do anything. You will be automatically enrolled in the program starting your first meter read date after January 1st. One thing we want to note is that the envelope as well as the letter itself will have the municipality seal on it. And we're doing this to differentiate ourselves from other energy companies that may be trying to also win your business. So if you really want to be part of the Westchester Power program, please look for the municipality seal. Our communication is going to come with that. And if ever you have a question, of course, call us at our office. And you can opt out of the program or switch between the supply options at any point in time with no penalties. During the 30-day period, you can sign and send back the prepaid postcard that comes along with it. Otherwise, you can also call us and we can help you opt out or switch between supply options. And you can also do this on your own by going at www.sustainablewestchester.org/WP. And we want to do a lot of outreach in our communities. We want everyone to understand what Westchester Power is, why we are doing this. And so going to why we're doing this, we're trying to help us transition to a clean energy future and address things that are very challenging, such as climate change ahead of us. And by participating in this program, as well as just even considering the participation or just listening to this presentation right now, you're doing a lot for us because you're helping us spread awareness of what Westchester Power is and what we're trying to achieve. And thank you so much for doing that. And I guess I would like to now open the floor for any questions that the board may have.
So I have maybe one or two questions. So this is basically designed for residents that do not have solar on their house, correct?
I'm sorry. So if a resident has solar on their house, you can still participate in the program, imagining that the solar panels don't use, I guess, don't support all of your energy use. You still have to connect to the grid. So you could either default to a Con Ed supply, or you could be part of our program. And if you are an eligible customer, actually, I guess now that the Village of Ossining is participating in this program, the first thing would be that you would be enrolled automatically unless you opt out. Otherwise, if you do opt out, you would go to Con Ed.
Okay, so I don't opt out come January 1st and I have solar put on my house in February. Now, there's no flags that go up at NYSERDA or Con Ed that we're double dipping here, so to speak?
No, there isn't, and actually, thank you so much if you do that, because both you're helping us green the grid, and two, you're supporting renewable energy, and just its operation within our New York State by being in our program.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Rika, go ahead. I see you.
No,
unmuted.
I was going to ask, I have solar on my roof, and in the beginning, Ossining was one of the first involved in one of the first municipalities. Those of us that had already put panels on were left out, but Bob just asked a question, so thank you.
So yeah, so Carmen, I love this program. I was a part of Sustainable Westchester's steering committee at the time that we first started exploring, and Amy Paulin was the head of the state environmental committee at the time, and we had a whole list of things that we were interested in, and that's the one, CCA, is what she really thought might have some legs, and it was it was yeoman's work to get the state to move forward, and this was a pilot for the whole state here in Westchester, and it was so successful that it expanded, the ability for it expanded quickly, and I was delighted that that Ossining was, as usual, on the forefront of these great programs that Sustainable Westchester has to offer. And I just want to clarify for folks who, I learned a lot about it, at least as much as I needed to know to be able to understand the basics of it. Because for those of us who haven't really been paying attention to the fact, which is most people, because you still get the same Con Ed bill in the mail, and Con Ed is still responsible for maintaining all of the transmission lines and for doing all of the billing. The only difference is, and the reason why you wouldn't notice it is, typically for communities that don't participate in CCA, or for individuals who opt out of the CCA, the source, the actual energy itself that is purchased, Con Ed goes out and purchases energy on the broader energy market, whatever source, however that energy may be sourced. We do the 100% renewable green energy that Westchester Power, as part of Sustainable Westchester, goes out to the market, and that was you did a really exciting way of going to the market this time with the bid process, and so it's just like going to the market, whether you're going to the grocery store to buy groceries or you're going to the energy market to buy energy. You have a choice of what type of energy you're going to buy, and the renewable energy that is purchased by the CCA, they go to the renewable energy market and got this really great deal for us. But I'm glad you're here and explaining it, because people come to us and and say what's going on. Why are you hoodwinking me into this program? And so I think that your approach for communication this year hopefully will be somewhat reassuring for folks. And also now we've been doing it for, I think, 5 years, 6 years. This is the third contract? When you tell me, what is the history?
Third contract. We've been in operation since 2016.
Okay.
So it's been a long ride, and I think it's very good. As mentioned, we were the pilot, and now it's spreading everywhere. It's in Long Island, upstate. People are actually asking us, like, I've had a question like, would you consider just only having 100% renewable energy as a product as opposed to having both? And there are a lot of CCAs or community choice aggregations, which is what Westchester Power is, out there that are trying to start up and asking us for as much as advice as they can get. And that's just wonderful.
That's great. Kudos to you for being a leader in the industry. That must feel really good to be able to share with other potential communities, to be able to follow in your footsteps. That's great. Okay, so logistically, I think, Karen, is it just a matter of paperwork, or has that already happened?
We have signed the contract, so.
All right. Okay, good. So we'll just look for something to arrive in our mailbox in a couple of weeks then.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Is there any other questions for Carmen? Okay, Carmen, thank you so much for all your time. And I think now I would like to bring on our treasurer, Dale Brennan, to talk, give us an update on the budget process and tell you where we're heading in 2021. She's done an enormous amount of work to get us to this point. We're very excited about the work that she's done on behalf of the staff, who has also worked very, very hard and sharpened their pencils, knowing that we have some, we're going through some difficult times and we're facing an uncertain future, but we are in good hands here. So Dale, if you could go ahead with your update. Thank you.
Thank you, Village Manager DeTore. Good evening, Mayor, Village Trustees. Thank you for having me. It is a slight precursor to our normal budget process, but it's always good to start the conversation early. Even though in the village, we do not adopt our budget until the first legislative meeting in December, we actually start the budget process in August. So in August, we are working to update the salary schedule, build the shell for the budget, enter any adjustments in accordance to what we see already, and that includes the tax cap. So the tax cap, which they love to call the 2% tax cap, is generally not 2%. It's actually 2% or the percentage of change in CPI for the 12-month period ending 6 months previous to the start of our next fiscal year. And I know that seems very confusing, but in our terms, in village terms, that is the CPI change between July of the year before and June of the current fiscal year we are in. So it's really July of 2019 through June of 2020 is determining what our tax cap percentage increase is. So for this year, when that number came out, our magic percentage was a 1.56, which did not reach the 2%, but I have to say, I think there has only been 1 year, which was last year, that it actually did reach 2%. So not surprising, unfortunately, in our current economic status. So it actually came in higher than I actually thought it would be. So now we have that number. We also would get a growth factor percentage if there was one allowed. Now the growth factor is based on new development or taxable assessments coming onto the roll. Unfortunately for this year, for the village. We did not have a growth factor percentage come in to play to increase our percent. So that will remain flat. But the offset for that is the village was conservative in their 2020 budget, and we had an allowable carryover amount of $282,521, which we will be bringing into this year for our tentative budget filing, which will be done on November 4th. But we are still working on it, and definitely we'll get there. But the the interesting thing when we were looking at the numbers, going through the budget with all the departments who put in a lot of work, they sharpened their pencils, definitely for sure. They determine what capital projects they're going to need. They determine what kind of fees should be changed or reevaluated or analyzed against other surrounding entities to make sure we're in line. So that process occurred the first week of October. We had meetings for the full week with every department run by the village manager and assistant village manager. So we definitely took away from some areas, put more into other areas to determine, especially with the COVID situation, which has changed our landscape. We had to change a lot of numbers around. We had to really assess how it would impact us and really try to make some hard assumptions, essentially. Which we're still continuously evaluating even now. The interesting thing on sales tax, which we were concerned about when this all started, our second quarter amount was just slightly lower than last year, not even a full percent. But our third quarter, when I got the numbers today, are going to come in at about 15% higher than last year's. So that's fabulous news. And a lot of that is attributable to the 1% that came into effect last August. So that is definitely helping. But the village was very conservative when we built our 2020 budget, not to account for that full 1% additional tax that would have equaled, it was almost $1.3 million. But we took basically about half for our budget. So we should be right on line for 2020. When I did the calculations, even putting in a projection of a reduction for the fourth quarter, because we still don't know where we're going. And if we have a resurgence, that might affect sales tax, as we saw in the second quarter, we would still be about 300,000 over our budget amount for 2020. So I think we're okay in that regard. Unfortunately, in items like recreation revenues that dropped, parking revenues that dropped, parking fines that dropped, there are other instances that we took a hard look at in the budget for the 2021 budget and adjusted hopefully to a good number that is going to true up. Essentially though, when I pulled the assessment numbers from Assessor Fernando Gonzalez in the town, an interesting thing came about that our assessment values increased a total of 5.19%. And so essentially what this is creating is at the point that we have our tax levy with our allowable increase percent coming in and using that allowable levy amount, our tax rate is still going to actually show a reduction. So it's really going to be reduced from 10.8492 for 2020, which it has been for, I believe, the mayor can correct me, is this 5 years of 0% increase?
We had 4 years, so now we're actually going down.
Okay.
So we're not continuing our record, but we're getting better.
Okay, I will take it. It essentially equates to a 19-cent decrease per thousand of assessed value at this point. So we are off definitely to a solid start. And once we file that tentative budget, the board will be meeting November 5th during the day, November 9th in the evening, November 12th in the evening, and potentially November 14th. And it will all be available to everybody by Zoom to attend, and look forward to another budget process.
Oh my God, talk about burying the lead, Dale. We're lowering taxes, and it was like a 20-minute lead up.
You got to start with that.
You are never going to be in media, I got to say, but that's okay. That's okay.
I wasn't sure how much I was supposed to go into here.
No, well, because people probably wouldn't have been listening if they just heard like the really exciting news, which is we're going to be lowering taxes this year, which is unheard of, and is actually, you are part of the group of people that said you can never, ever, ever lower the tax rate. You just can't do it. You can go to 0, but you can't go lower. But this year is just, 2020 is like no other year. A lot of it has to do with the assessed value, which is really hurting actually a lot of people who aren't trying to sell their houses and have a house that saw an increase in its assessed value. People who have just been, hit so hard financially this year. So we knew we didn't want to raise the tax rate. So I'm just delighted that not only are we going to be striving to have, I thought we were just going to strive to have a 0% tax rate increase because we know the revenue is going to go down, but it's actually going to be, we're going to be decreasing our tax rate this year, which is, I think, good news for all of us who are struggling financially. And thank you very much for being so conservative for so long. We have an incredibly strong financial situation in the village of Ossining, so we knew we were better off than a lot of other communities. But with the assessment rates this year, it's just very surprisingly good news on the financial front. And I feel guilty, like we shouldn't even tell anybody in other communities like what good situation we're in. So. I'm sure my colleagues who may not know as much of this as I do, because I learned about it yesterday, and Dale gave me another tutorial. What I love about this job, and I love budget season. Everybody knows it's my favorite season of the year, and every year I learn more. And I'm ashamed to say I was late driving my son to soccer because I was so caught up in a conversation with Dale, really trying to understand just another level of depth of knowledge about municipal budgets. So thank you, Dale, for being such a good tutor for me. And I'm sure my colleagues on the board and on staff have other questions and comments about it.
Thank you.
Not all of us get as excited about it, but taxes going down is great. Look, I'm going to have questions when we do the budget and we see the numbers, but the headline here is fantastic. I think it is unprecedented in the sense that people a year ago couldn't really sell houses, and now they're selling it above asking. That's great if you're selling and moving to a less expensive area than Westchester, and you have the ability and the capacity and the time and the job, or you're retiring, whatever it is. But that's not the case for most people. So it works against them. Values go up, but they're really not able to take advantage of it. So it's an interesting year from an accounting and finance perspective. I only had one question, Dale. Did you get a chance to do a 3-year sort of plan as I had asked for the past couple of years, or is that still just something, not that you didn't get a chance to do?
It's on the burner. I have not been able to get to that yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm hoping if not at the point that we get to our budget meetings shortly thereafter. Just a lot of irons in the fire.
Wow, all these analogies, burners, fires, all good stuff. Listen, I'm going to persevere. I just think it's a context issue. And I think if this is an aberration, 2020 and then going into 21 may not be so important except to look at and go, wow, it was an aberration. But from a context point of view, especially with a new trustee coming on, it's so difficult to make decisions when you don't have the context. But you know that. I'm not. I do hope, though, that when we're done with this budget, if you don't get to it, that I know we also had to change, you and Tom, I get that. But I've also been here for like 5-something years and just like to see it so that there's some trend analysis. It would just be helpful. It's not a complaint. I know you're busy. So maybe we'll move it to the front burner after the budget or something, but I'd really like to work on that. And then I'll get as excited as Victoria gets at the budget season. But thank you. It's a lot of work doing these budgets, especially with so many things going on. Bless you. Oh, that's a dog. I'm sorry. I thought somebody was sneezing. Sorry about that. Oh, that's cute. Is that yours, Dale?
Yeah, that's Jack.
Ah, that's cute.
I was for too long, I guess.
Anyway, thanks. And thanks for all the hard work. I know it's not just you, it's a lot of people. We'll talk more in detail when we do the actual budget meeting. So thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to comment at this time? I know we have days and days we get to talk about this in depth. You're good.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
All
I think I'll wait on him. But Jack never misses a meeting, though. Never misses a meeting.
All right. Does anybody else want to comment? Otherwise, we're going to have days we're going to get to talk about this. Karen, do you want to give us any overview, or just should we?
No, I think Dale didn't bury the lead. She built the suspense.
Oh,
so
okay.
another way to look at it. But we'll have another installment of your fiscal future coming up soon in November, and more certainly in much greater detail. And Trustee Levin, we will work on. We are looking at ways to look at projecting. Again, municipal budgets are a little bit more challenging because of the way they're broken out and things that we have to look at. But we do also understand the need to put things in context, to be proactive. That really is reflected most certainly in every aspect of the budget, particularly in the capital needs. So I think that we'll be able to address your request, and we're very excited to move into a year knowing that, knock wood, we're in a good position, and we're grateful for that, and we're gonna work even harder to make sure we stay that way. So thank you all. And thank you, Dale, our treasurer, Dale Brennan. Thank you so much, and to all the staff who worked so hard on the budget so far.
Mayor, may I just say one quick thing? Of course. Thank you. Just keep in mind something that not only like Dell taking the lead on her department, but we also had to change the software in there, and I know that was a challenge in a lot of different ways. So I just have one quick question, Dell. How is the software working?
The software is working well. It is a change, especially, when you're doing a whole new process that you actually have to recreate. So in this, I actually had to recreate the budgets in the system because all it would, bring over, is actually the modified budget for the 2020 year at this point. So it's just a matter of setting the parameters up and then making sure everything works. We did get accounts receivable up and running. We are very happy with that process. We are working on getting the tax billing up and running. We've been doing conference calls with our tax bill printers, our lockbox provider, with Edmunds, in order to get everybody hooked up so that we are able to do the 2021 tax bills out of the new software. They had a slight lag in scheduling, but hopefully by the end of this month, we should have a play directory so that we can utilize a bit before we actually go live with the system, because that's definitely one thing we do not want to have a problem with, for sure. And hopefully it'll go nice and smooth. That's my hope.
So again, so my question is, are you happy with the new software?
I am. Are there
Okay.
changes? Absolutely. Everybody likes things a little tweaked. So I am working with them on seeing different things that they can modify on their end for us, and those are on their list, and they're working on those. So it's a good relationship though, because they take your feedback, and they'll offer a solution, or offer a way to create another solution, let's say. So they are responsive. Yes.
Great, thank you. So I'll ask the same question at the beginning of next year. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dale. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Okay. Karen, do you have any more reporting for us, or is it Stuart's turn?
I just want to say that the DPW site visit is going to be at 30 Water Street, which is at the corner of Central Avenue and Water Street, just in case people didn't know what site we were talking about. We have several, so, and that's it.
All right. Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, folks. Not much to report. Executive Order 202.70 was issued yesterday, which extends moratorium with regard to evictions or foreclosure proceedings involving commercial properties until January 1st. There is already a moratorium in effect with regard to residential properties. The state yesterday issued a 96-page booklet on what will happen when the vaccine becomes available. Let's just say it is a very complicated thing to read, but essentially essential employees, but starting with healthcare, EMTs and such are first in line. And it basically goes by what percentage of vaccine is available to the population. So if you're healthy and not in any comorbidity category, you essentially have to wait till 100% of the vaccine is available. Smaller percentages will be available for those folks who fit into the other categories. But we're not there yet, but that, as I said, came out yesterday from the state. The state did today publish new guidelines with regard to hot zones, those being the red, yellow, and orange zones. Westchester County, we're not in that, but we are in what's called Tier 1. So effectively, that determines how you would go into either a yellow zone, an orange zone, or a red zone, depending upon what we call the positivity rate. As most of you know, if you take the hot zone or the red zone clusters out, the positivity rate drops significantly in the state. However, it should be pointed out, positivity rate in the state is now over, it's about 1.4%, which is not where you want it. You want it under 1%, which is important. As some of you have already noted, there are, I believe now, 43 states on the travel advisory. That does not include New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, which, as the governor acknowledged, otherwise would be on the list, but because of their interconnectivity with New York State, his recommendation is simply, if you don't have to visit, don't visit those states. I joked with my wife, that means we do not have to see her sister. She did not find that very funny. But in any event, that's basically where we are with that. I do expect that there will be a revised executive order sometime within probably the next 2 weeks dealing with the open meetings, because that goes through the 4th of November. So we will probably see some change on that probably on the 3rd, which is how this has been working. But otherwise, we are just plugging along, reading, what comes down from the governor. The travel advisory for folks who are interested changes every Tuesday. So if you are interested and want to know, you can go to the governor's page, look at travel advisories, and it will be there. And also, it is not just the 43 plus states, it is also any country that is on a travel 2 or travel 3 restriction. You can find those lists at either Homeland Security or at the CDC site. So it's a rather long list. The folks here who check people in have those lists, so that's why they ask all about that, and we do update them. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Stuart. I lost my access to sound. Oh, go ahead, Martha. You can move us along.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Evening. Still relatively quiet from the police department right now. Not a whole lot going on. In terms of enforcement, our hot thing this week is traffic enforcement, with a number of complaints coming in for whatever reason, a variety of exotic car clubs finding their way into this end of Westchester County with loud mufflers, which seem to be driving our residents a little bit crazy. So we're finding those groups congregating everywhere from Peekskill to here to Tarrytown. So predominantly on the weekends, but also on some weeknights, with a lot of complaints coming in about loud mufflers and things of that nature. So in terms of enforcement, if that's the worst we got going on, we're doing pretty well. This week is the International Association of Chiefs of Police annual conference. It is virtual this year, which keeps us from having face-to-face contact with some of our colleagues where we would usually have opportunities to network and learn. But on the bright side, much more of our staff is being exposed to all of the great training they have. So this week we'll be covering things like implicit bias, procedural justice, community engagement, crisis communications, pretty much all the hot topics that we should be covering, which is the typical of what IACPO usually offers. They are the agency that does that type of training. So that's what we're busy with this week. With regard to Halloween, we will not be having trunk or treat, but we're hopeful that we may be able to announce a safe alternative, hopefully in the next few days. We'll let everybody know when the time comes that we can make a hard announcement on that one. That's all from the police department for tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Good luck at the, is this the IACP meeting? I believe your name is going to be on a ballot somewhere. Is that related to this upcoming program that you're attending?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a position with the Public Information Officer section tomorrow. It's not really much of an election. We're running unopposed, but we kind of have to tell everybody that we're running for it. So I'll be taking a position as vice chair for that. I also sit on the Police Professional Standards, Ethics, and Image Committee. So those two committees over the course of the next year are putting together both a style guide for crisis communications, as well as doing a nationwide campaign for re-imaging police departments and community engagement and things of that sort. So we're going to be developing recruiting guides and things of that nature. So some of the
That's
stuff.
great. That's great. Thanks for representing the department so well with your peers. All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, moving on to organizational announcements. Is there anybody here who would like to make an organizational announcement?
Just looking at the attendees, I'm not seeing an attendee raising their hand, and I don't see anybody in the room approaching the microphone, so I think we're good on organizational announcements, Madam Clerk.
Okay, moving along to village board resolutions. Is there anybody here who would like to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening?
Again, I'm looking in the virtual attendees list, and I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand, so I think we're all ready to go.
Okay. Approval of minutes, October 7, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the October 7th regular meeting as presented. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of voucher detail, October 21st, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated October 21st, 2020 in the amount of $504,709.48. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Finance, establishment of 2020 parking study capital project, Whereas village management wishes to establish a capital project for a parking study of $120,000, which is funded transfer from the 2020 general fund as budgeted of $60,000 and state grant funds of $60,000. Now therefore be resolved, the following capital project and capital project budget is established as follows. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'll just say I'm very excited that this parking study is going forward. Thank you so much. I know, Maddie, you were really instrumental in moving this forward, and thank you to everybody who's been. This is the Nelson Nygaard project, right? That we're working with. Yeah. So I know that there's a whole team of people who have really been part of the committee moving this forward, and I'm excited to see where this goes. And I'll be one of the community members who's like complaining about it when you guys get further along in the process. But for now, it looks great. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing proposed local law 8, 2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 68 Alcoholic Beverages, Chapter 186 Parades, Chapter 190 Parks and Recreation, and adopting a new Chapter 226 Special Events, Parades, and Public Gatherings of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on November 4, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 8, 2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 68 Alcoholic Beverages, Chapter 186 Parades, Chapter 190 Parks and Recreation, and adopting a new Chapter 226 Special Events, Parades, and Public Gatherings of the Village of Ossining Code. And be it further resolved that as a result of the continuing state of emergency and as a result of the executive orders issued by the governor, in-person attendance at the public hearing will be limited. Those individuals who want to attend the public hearing in person will be subject to temperature checks and health screening questions. Attendees must comply with social distancing and face covering protocols, and be it further resolved that for those individuals who want to watch and or participate in the public hearing remotely, the following contact information is provided. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board. I will say that this is, actually sort of a little bit of a theme this evening, because we've been working on this. Thank you very much to Jamie and Bill and Stuart, who have been working on this for a very long time, putting this together. The fee schedule is something that we still are going to be considering, but we're going to call for the public hearing, and that will give just more opportunity for any stakeholders who are interested. We have a lot of organizations that run events every year, and in the past we haven't had a consistent approach to it, and so this is an opportunity, once we have it on, for a public hearing beginning in a couple of weeks, and then we can keep the public hearing open and until we have the fees figured out and understand what this would really look like in practice. We can just keep the public hearing open and then vote on it when everything will make sense. All that said, we're probably not going to have any events anytime soon anyway, so we have a little bit of a cushion in getting it right. Anybody else want to comment on this? It was a pretty big undertaking, but we have talked about it an awful lot.
No, thank you. We have talked about a lot. I just wanted to make sure that this gets widely publicized. Can I just be reminded that this is going to that group of folks and businesses that showed up for input into these issues, that they're all going to be reached via email, letters, whatever, not beyond just our usual outreach. I just want to make sure that this is a loop back to all of those folks, most of whom, if not all, are proprietors and events and not-for-profits who count on these events every year and provide these events every year. So I guess I'm looking, is it Maddie or Jamie? Jamie, thank you. I'm looking at my screen and you're sitting across the way. So I just want to make sure that you guys, you're reaching out to every single one that attended, right? Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else with comments? All we're doing now is calling for a public hearing. But
Right.
Every opportunity to make sure we're all on the same page. This is something that, like Rika's making the point, there's a lot of stakeholders who invest a lot into events, and we want to make sure that they know what's going on. All right, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stuart, for the next resolution, which parts would you like me to read, or the entire thing? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I know, that's true. I can't hear myself either. You don't have to read the policy, Martha. Just read the whereases in the first result.
Gotcha. Adoption of Village of Ossining Computer System Security Breach Notification Policy. Whereas Section 20810 of the State Technology Law requires the village to adopt a computer system breach notification policy, which policy is intended to establish procedures to follow in the event a persons has access and or acquired without valid authorization private information of individuals on the records of the Village of Ossining, and to alert such individuals to any potential identity theft as quickly as possible so that the individuals may take appropriate steps to protect themselves from and remedy any impact on the potential identity theft or security breach. And whereas the state technology law authorizes the village to adopt the breach notification policy as either village approved policy or by local law. And whereas at the October 14th work session, the Board of Trustees discussed the proposed computer system security breach notification policy. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining adopts the computer system security breach notification policy published below, and that a copy of the policy shall be posted on the village's webpage with copies made available in the offices of the village departments. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Comments on the board? Yeah, did you want to make a comment?
No.
Oh, okay. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay.
I guess actually I could have made a comment to just say thank you, Stuart, for getting in order as we probably should have been, and we appreciate you making sure that we thankfully haven't had a breach, but we have a policy to handle it appropriately should that ever happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Authorizing the village manager to sign an agreement with 26 Campwoods LLC regarding proposed right-of-way improvements and allowing encroachment onto village-owned property. Whereas 26 Campwoods LLC owner is the owner of property in the Village of Ossining, having a street address of 26 Campwoods Road with a tax map designation as 90.13-2-57 property. And whereas the owner proposed changes to the property, which changes following discussions with village staff will include improvements within the village's right-of-way, including installation of ADA compliant curb cuts and crosswalks on Bell Avenue, Campwoods Road. And whereas the owner has received a parking variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals and conditional site plan approval from the Planning Board. And whereas the site plan details certain minimal encroachments onto the village property, in addition to the proposed improvements, such encroachments involving a canopy for the service station located at the property, as well as additional curbing. And whereas at the October 14th work session, the Board of Trustees heard from the village engineer, planning director, and corporation counsel regarding the owner's proposed improvements. Now therefore be it resolved that upon review of the corporation counsel, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with 26 Campwoods LLC with regard to the proposed improvements and minimal encroachments onto village-owned property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
I just had a question. I actually took a walk up there. I'm not going to, I'm sure that whatever the engineer came up with is advantageous to the community. The hours of operation. So gas stations, I think, have different hours of operation than stores. So Stuart, is there hours of operations for the store part? Because that's what they're opening, right?
Yes, Trustee Levin, I'd have to check, but that would be part of the conditional site plan approval that was granted. So it's not within this agreement, but I would have to check, because usually that is something that the planning board is cognizant of when they are approving it, particularly in residential zones.
Okay.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
But
So
but you don't know the
I don't
hour.
recall.
Yeah.
I don't recall if it was 10 or 12. It's one or the other, but it was done with direct concern about it being open at an hour that would be late and disruptive to the neighbor.
Okay. And we're not really voting on that aspect of it anyway at this point. There is,
that was a major discussion, and
it's in the middle of a residential area. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Just information. I wasn't sure. I am concerned that intersection is not great, and there are a lot of school kids and school buses that continuously stop. But I'm just not sure that that makes any difference from where it is today to where it's going to be going forward. That maybe maybe this will help a little bit in people being able to cross the street there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of awning permit from Melita's Home Furnishing / 127 Main Street Realty Corp. Whereas Village of Ossining Building Department received on September 30th, 2020 from Melita's Home Furnishing / 127 Main Street Realty Corp owner an application for the installation of a retractable awning identified as On-Text Beauty Mark brand Maui LX model. Such awning to be installed at 127 Main Street, identified by tax designation number 89.16-6-4 property. And whereas the property is located in the Main Street Historic and Architectural Design District, and whereas Village of Ossining Code Section 229-5 provides no person shall erect or cause to be erected or maintained within the village any awning, shed, roof, or other overhead obstructions over any sidewalk without permission of the Board of Trustees, a less distance than 7 feet in the clearance from the surface of the sidewalk. And whereas the owner has submitted an application to the Planning Department for the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness by the Historic Preservation Commission pursuant to Village Code Section 270-25F. And whereas the Board of Trustees discussed the owner's application for an awning permit on the October 14th, 2020 work session. Now therefore be resolved that pursuant to the Village of Ossining Section 229-5, the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees approves the application by Melita's Home Furnishings -127 Main Street Realty Corp. For an awning permit in accord with the application received on September 30, 2020, and be it further resolved that the granting of the awning permit is conditioned upon the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness by the Historic Preservation Commission for the installation of the awning on the property. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Resolution acknowledging receipt of application for honorary street renaming and referring to for the application to the village historian. Whereas on or about October 13, 2020, the village manager received an application from Scott Kamen seeking the honorary naming of Liberty Street in memory of his wife, Joanne Tall, and whereas pursuant to the Village of Ossining honorary street naming policy, where the application meets basic criteria including A, the proposed honorary street name, B, contribution to the Village of Ossining, the proposed honorary, C, the length of time the proposed honorary resided or continues to reside in the village, D, the name of the existing street to have the honorary street naming, E, whether the street already has an honorary street name, S, a map identifying the location of the street to receive the honorary street naming, and G, the proposed honorary's connection to the street where the honorary street naming is sought, and whereas the application by Scott Kamen meets the basic criteria for honorary street naming, now therefore be it resolved that the application by Scott Kamen is referred to the village historian in accord with the Village of Ossining honorary street naming policy, and that the village historian shall present her report to the Board of Trustees within 45 days of this referral. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board? No? Okay. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adoption of the final written scoping document for the draft generic environmental impact statement for the comprehensive plan update and potential related amendments to the village's zoning code. Whereas by resolution dated July 15, 2020, the Board of Trustees declared itself as lead agency for the updating of the 2009 comprehensive plan and approving associated Chapter 270 zoning of the village code. And whereas by resolution dated September 2nd, 2020, the Board of Trustees adopted a resolution scheduling a public hearing for September 24, 2020 regarding the draft scoping document for the draft environmental impact statement GGEIS for the village's comprehensive plan update and potential related amendments to the village's zoning code. And whereas pursuant to the September 2nd resolution, the draft scoping document was circulated to all involved agencies and made available to any individual or interested agency that expressed an interest in writing to the Board of Trustees. And whereas the Board of Trustees accepted written comments on the draft scoping document between September 14th and October 16th, 2020. And whereas a scoping session was held on September 24th to allow for public input in accord with 6 NYCRR 617.8D. And whereas at the scoping session, there were discussions on zoning issues and affordable housing with no direct changes to the draft scoping document having presented. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees adopts the draft scoping document as published as the final written scope pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.8E, which final written scope shall be used to guide the outline and development of the GEIS. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Comments on the board? I'll just start off by saying, Frank Fish, I wish I had been paying closer attention to the order of operations we had here because you've been very patiently, I now realize, waiting just to talk about this, the very last item on the agenda. So thank you for being here to address any questions we might have. Anybody want to comment on this? Oh, Frank, go ahead.
No, just said thank you.
I was just looking to see if it's not actually linked on the agenda for the meeting. Usually we link the documents on the agenda, but it's not here. So I'm just surprised by that. I mean, where is the easiest place for people to find it?
The scoping document itself was put online.
It's on the Ossining tomorrow page. If you want, I'm going to pull it up and then I can
No,
share
that makes a lot of
screen.
sense. It'll be on the documents page of that, right?
Right.
Do you want me to pull it up and then share my screen?
Oh, sure.
Okay, give me just a moment.
I see it.
Secret run, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So Frank, while Jamie's pulling this up, is there anything you wanted to, or Jaime, you wanted to point out to us since the last time you came and we spoke about it?
Just to say this scoping document now, if you approve the resolution tonight, really forms the basis for us writing a draft environmental impact statement. So this will guide it. And we hope to get into that, in November and December so that the Board of Trustees would have something by January. The committee's plan, as you know, is reaching a conclusion. They held a public hearing, which you discussed earlier, Omar reviewed, and the committee meeting on November 17th, their hope is to then send you, the trustees, a draft plan, and you now have in your hands the zoning efforts that have been sent to you. It's really a threefold zoning. So this scope just says those things would be reviewed. And I think it is important, given our school board meeting earlier this week, that they'll be interested in the environmental impact statement, because schools is an issue that you the trustees did highlight as an issue for us to cover in the EIS. And this scoping document says, basically says that, as well as transportation issues due to any new development in the village. So I think this just sets out the outline for the scope, but we do need that because it's our guide, if you will, to writing the DGIS.
Great, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments before we vote on this? Thank you, Jamie, by the way, for pulling that up from the Ossining Tomorrow page. Anybody else with questions or comments for Frank or Jaime before we vote? Okay, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there any continuing business of the board?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, is there any new business of the board?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
Stuart, were you about to say something?
I was shaking my head no.
Okay, okay, good. All right, Madam Clerk.
Is there anybody here who would like to address the board on any issues not related to the agenda tonight?
I'm looking at the attendees that we have, and they've changed a little bit since the last time I looked, so I'll just wait a moment and see if anybody wants to raise their hand from our virtual attendees. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. I think we're good. So do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session for?
Matters of real property, Mayor.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And with that, I say thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you virtually next week when we have our work session. This meeting is adjourned.